Hello and welcome to Hey, I Loved That Movie, the podcast where we rewatch the films we loved when we were younger to see if they still hold up. I'm Dan,
I'm Michael.
I'm Helena.
And I'm Ben.
and for today's episode, we watched Jumper.
I've
a lot
just
of crossover.
realised, looking at the poster, there's one of the big reasons why I watched this movie was the poster is from the makers of The Bourne Identity and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, two movies I absolutely loved.
Yeah,
I had high hopes for this film.
you shouldn't have.
I did. I enjoyed this film. I thought it was it had a lot that I really enjoyed in it. There was so much possibility. I remember my mum watching it and being like, "Well, that was garbage." And I tried jumping to its defense at the time. But on rewatch, it's definitely siding with mum.
It's definitely garbage.
Well, I kind of enjoyed it. Let's start with the basic plot of this movie is so it's another movie where it likes to make you, the audience, remember that you fucking suck and you don't have these teleporting powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his first line is, "I used to be a chump like you."
What it is with films, action films of this period, just being hostile towards the
Yeah.
audience.
They just want to make you feel like shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
We don't
straight
get-
away you're like, yeah, I'm really rooting for this hero right now.
Yeah.
Love this
We-
guy.
We don't get
Oh.
enough where films anymore where it opens up with the main character going, "Fuck you." Hey,
Oi.
person watching this, fuck you. We should
It really
have
it has that whiny wanted thing about it at the start. Like the voiceover is just so smug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that kind of shows how smug and selfish he is there's that bit where he's watching the news and there's like a flood and there's people trapped and dying and he's like, well, gonna go and get some food.
Yeah.
And he
Count
just
money.
goes to London.
Yeah, that scene. So the story of the film is this guy learns that he can teleport. If that wasn't clear from the name
Is
Jumper,
it just teleport from places that he's been to before or seen in photos?
He's got to
Yeah.
have seen them.
Yeah, I think he has to have seen them, which is why he has a wall of photos.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the side, like the bad guy, like the rest of the plot is that the bad guys or the alleged bad guys, the paladins, which as a
Paladins,
D&D
yeah.
player was like,
Yeah.
what? But yeah, they think that they're an abomination and want to wipe them out, and they're not exactly wrong, are they?
They just like to go full on with the only God should have this power, and like,
Yeah,
you know, I don't know about you. I don't know if God can teleport. Jesus might be able to. It didn't really say.
yeah, no, because the character, the guy's excuse, Samuel L. Jackson's character's excuse. Sorry, Samuel L. Jackson with white hairs.
Oh yeah,
The-
old Nick
literally-
Fury.
The most off-putting thing about this entire movie was Samuel L. Jackson's white hair.
Yeah,
It's so bad.
it's like they went. He's in a sci-fi movie, white hair. But yeah, no, when he does capture them, he's like, and he says only God should have this power. Only God should be able to be everywhere at once, which
Yeah.
isn't what the Jumpers do.
Well, but I mean, they're kind of wherever they want to be at any time, which I guess is easier to conceptualize than omnipotence.
Yeah,
Or not omnipresence. I mean, they're not like he's not an all-powerful being in that respect, but he can go wherever he wants to with
Mm.
no restrictions, and it does corrupt him. Like he steals. There's no like doubt about it. Like he's
Yeah,
a criminal.
Literally one of the first things he does. Like even Jamie Bell, the other jumper in this, like none of the jumpers seem to use their powers for good.
Yeah, there's no superhero. He doesn't even attempt. It's not like it might have been more forgivable or interesting if like his coming of age part of the film was that he tries to be a superhero and it doesn't work for whatever reason, or he does something bad or tries to save someone and ends up killing more people and decides like, well, sod it, I'm better off not trying. But there's none of that. It's just like, oh, okay, I can do this. Thank God I'm not the boring scum I used to be.
Kind of realistic though, I suppose. I think most people would be like, oh, this is my easy ticket out of here.
Yeah, it's your sort of key to anywhere. Like it gets like when it shows him and he's like mastered his teleporting and he's just like in his apartment and he's teleporting around. Like I'd get so fat if I could do that, honestly.
Oh yeah,
I'm
that bit where
surprised,
where he reaches the remote and then just like he can't reach it, so he teleports like 20 centimeters to the right, so he
Yeah.
can grab the remote.
Yeah.
Which is
spot
weird.
on.
I guess the smaller of a teleport you do, the less of a effect it has on the surrounding. Because, like, I mean, a big part of it seems to be that when they teleport, it just rips part of the world open, and you get, like, you know, bits of other areas coming through with you.
Only when the paladins sort of mess around with you though. Like when they're jumping, it's pretty seamless, but they leave like a little trace behind.
Yeah, I suppose they're tearing the trace open.
I mean, the times when they mess up is when they do things like transport cars and buildings and whatever through.
I think it does like rip open a hole because it's whenever they teleport with big things. 'cause
Yeah, when he
when
first
he's-
teleports into the library.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
gets everything absolutely sopping wet, doesn't he?
Yeah, he either loves or hates that one specific library.
And also when he steals the money, whenever he teleports back, there's just money flying everywhere. So I think it does like rip in. It's not like just him; it's like an area around that it pulls with you.
But then sometimes it's like quite finesse.
I guess
Yeah.
maybe
Where
it's...
they'll teleport and they'll like be next to someone and they nearly walk into them and it's like oops, and it's like, well, surely in a like teleporting into a busy place, like what if you just split someone open? How come that's not a concern?
I
Like
was
you
yeah,
transport
that was
into
my-
you teleport into an airport.
yeah, that was my main concern with this film, because at any moment, if you teleport at the wrong time, you could end up inside someone. Because the photo doesn't show if someone is stood there.
What if the building's been knocked down?
You'd fall,
Like,
but
what,
then, like,
yeah, like what if it's changed since you were last there?
well, falling isn't as scary if you can teleport.
Yeah, as you see in the
As you go,
fight
nope.
scene where they're falling.
But yeah, no, there's no reason for why there can't be a person stood where you're planning to land, unless part of the jumper's powers is to not do that.
Yeah, I guess they have maybe enough awareness as they're coming in to move enough
To
around to
pick a
not
thing.
crash.
Yeah.
Also, so this film starts problematic with who he is. Shall we talk about the girl
She has like no character development at all, or
and self-awareness or like self-preservation?
Yeah, no, she doesn't.
If a guy that you barely know because he's disappeared to the point where people thought he was dead comes back and is like, "Hey, I'm going to take you to Rome right now." You don't go, and you don't eventually decide, no, I've had enough, when you know you're in danger because you've already been chased by people with guns.
Yeah, and not police with guns. Weird people in a different kind of uniform. I'm just remembering this. When they get to Italy, the guard says, "No, you're not allowed in. It's closed." And then Hayden Christensen's character just walks up to a gate and is like, "No, it's open." She's like, oh, "Okay then."
Yeah, well, she knows that he's managed to open it or find like a way in, but she's like, yeah, she's not like, well, can't we come back tomorrow?
Yeah. She's like,
Like, it's
"Alright."
like, well, how about we see the rest of the beautiful sights in Rome? It's not like the Colosseum is the only thing in Rome you can go and see.
Yeah.
So it's just a weird plot. Like it's just so forced, and like she's such a Mary Sue character where she's just there to drive this plot forward, to be
Yeah.
the weak point for old Nick Fury to come in and like trap this guy.
Well, I know you're saying he's Nick Fury, but this has Anakin Skywalker in it. He's Mace Windu in this movie.
Sorry. It's just that Roland is not a scary name. Roland is not a bad person name.
It's not even biblical. His whole thing that he's a paladin for God. Only God should be allowed to teleport. Yeah, give that character, because he's apparently high up in the paladins because he's hunting jumpers specifically.
well, I got the impression he was like leading it, maybe.
Yeah, like give that character a biblical name, unless Roland is a biblical name, and I'm just
I was just looking up the meaning, and it's not.
yeah.
Its meaning is usually meant famous land or from the famous land.
Yeah, call that character like John or something. Well, not that boring, but like Ezekiel.
Like if you're going down the Christian religious route, like there's so many exciting, weird biblical names you could pick from.
Yeah, and then
Roland.
have it be that, yeah, sure, that's not his real name, but paladins name themselves after biblical names because fucking paladins and only God is allowed to teleport.
Yeah, that would have made a lot more sense.
There's so much of this, and I think that's one of the biggest faults of this film. There's so much of it that just isn't developed.
Yeah, like it was a surprisingly short movie. Like I know it's an hour and a half, that's pretty standard movie time, but by the time it finished I was just kind of like, oh, is that it? Because I mean, spoilers for quite an old movie at this point, it ends with him teleporting Roland to just like, I guess, halfway up a cliff in a cave.
Yeah.
He's like,
Isn't it Death Valley?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like the Grand Canyon or something. Isn't
Yeah.
it?
It's the Grand Canyon.
Oh,
and he's just like halfway up a massive wall in a cave, which, I mean, at any point someone could see him and be like, hey, let's maybe get a big ladder or something, or a rope.
I think
But-
the point of that him leaving him there was to leave him alive, which is
that-
another weirdly underdeveloped part of the story. Is Roland is constantly saying, "Oh, the Jumpers are terrible people. They're all bad people." And Hayden Christian, David, I think his name is.
David,
Which
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
by the way, a biblical name.
Yep.
Um,
Because his mum was a paladin.
yeah, he at the end he says, "No, but I'm different," which is why he leaves him alive and why he leaves him in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the Batman rule of not killing someone.
Yeah,
Let
you
the
didn't
elements do it for you.
Yeah, you've not directly killed someone, but he's gonna
Like
starve
that,
to
yeah,
death
but
or trip.
Probably might die.
if you knock someone out in like minus 10 degrees weather in the snow,
Yeah.
yeah, you've knocked them out. You've not killed them, but you have condemned them, and he's condemned this person. Like
Well, no,
just because it doesn't happen as quickly.
no, he can survive. He survived worse, Roland. Like it shows him surviving worse and fighting harder. He can survive being in the Grand Canyon like that. It'd be difficult, but he'd get out. I think that's kind of the point. But it's really underdeveloped, that whole like he's a good jumper. All the other jumpers are terrible people.
But he's not a good jumper.
He's not. He's just not as bad as other ones.
I guess that's his slight character development, is he just kind of slowly learns not to be as selfish, but he's still selfish the whole
Yeah,
time.
he's still selfish.
I mean, he just wants to pull this girl. Like he's like, oh yeah, you were always the one, but like that doesn't ring true when you've spent that many years just going up. And like they show him when he goes to probably the grossest looking pub in central London to chat up that woman. Yeah, he's not really got any redeeming. Like it doesn't really feel like he's learned anything at the end, apart from all these people are after him, and he didn't know that before, and now he
Yeah.
does know that, and he knows that one of them's his mum, so she's probably not going to kill him.
At least his jumper friend has the sense and knowledge to be, I will do terrible things, but I will do them quietly.
Mm.
Yeah, like Jamie Bell's in it quite, like he's in a few scenes, sort of, you see him like I don't know his character's name, but he's trailing David quite a bit. Like
Yeah.
I think you first see him in that dingy London pub where he kind of,
Yeah.
he notices that David teleports a little bit because, like, I guess if other people weren't concentrating, they wouldn't. But where he knows he can do it, he's kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, so, okay, I've got one gripe with this movie, one very big gripe.
Mm-hmm.
And it is centered around Jamie Bell's character. So they go back to his little hideout in Egypt. And
Mhm.
he's playing Halo 3. And that is not how you play games. You don't fucking smash the controller and every button. And it happens in so many movies. And they're just like smashing every button and stick while playing a game. It's like,
That is exactly how I play Halo. I don't know
Yeah,
what you're
there's
talking
a lot
about.
of people that play Halo that way.
But it's just, it happens in so many games. I guess it's like, because, you know, it's not that exciting when you're using a controller. So I guess for films, they're like, oh, just, you know, ham it up a bit. But it's how-
That
how-
reminds me of. Have you seen the bit in Pitch Perfect, the first one, where her roommates' friends are playing games, and I think one of them has one has a Wii controller, one of them has an Xbox controller, and one of them it just has a phone held sideways.
Helena, you know we've all seen Pitch Perfect several
Yeah.
times. Don't even ask. But yeah, that is. I mean, obviously, there's other things wrong with this movie, but
The
that-
special
that-
effects hold up, and I think that's because the special effects are pausing the camera to let him move to a different part of the screen.
Yeah,
Yes,
I really
mm.
like the bit where like when they're fighting like Roland near the end, and
Mm.
Jamie Bell's character does that like teleport punch thing where he's just like shifting forward bit by bit as he's going.
Yeah.
That looked really
Yeah.
cool.
Building up his momentum.
Yeah.
I think the big teleporty bits look good, but
Mm.
when it's like this, when he's like in his apartment teleporting to pick up the remote, it looks that's the most noticeable it is
Yeah.
because all of the cushions move.
Oh, do they?
Like that is bad. But when they do the big teleporty stuff with all of the visual effects covering all of the other stuff, they are really good. And I really liked how much effort it looked to, and it felt like effort to move the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a scene where the girl is captured and he's captured and like they're stuck, and he's got loads of electricity poles going off of him, and he's tied to this building, and he just teleports with the building.
I mean, because they do actually foreshadow that when they talk about how one guy did manage to or try to teleport a building before and died. So that there was a little bit of sort of foreshadowing about that. You could see there was like that was their solution. But the whole electricity thing is very strange in it. Like, do these guys have hearts of steel? Is that part of your jumper powers? Like, how are they not just convulsing on the floor?
Yeah, because Jamie Bell's character gets stuck inside like a power line, effectively, doesn't he? And it's just
Yeah, and that's
it's
all the
chill.
traps are basically like an electricity. They're cables, and then they put a current through them and that holds them in place. But like, how does it not also kill them or stop their heart beating or do any of the other things that electricity's supposed to do?
That's true.
That was a bit strange because it's like maybe like if it was a mild current, like they were using like a taser, that would be
Yeah.
one thing. Where it's like, oh well, yeah, well because of your body uses electricity. If they'd like explained the jumping even a fraction of a bit more, but otherwise I'm just sat there like, well, why does electricity not just kill them?
Yeah, I feel like this film thought it would get a sequel.
I think it did
Mhm.
nearly get a sequel.
Yeah, I think they'll.
Because there's a
yeah.
sequel. It's based on a book, and there's a sequel to the book.
Yeah, maybe it I guess, just didn't quite do well enough. But yeah, a lot of the things that they left open, I feel like they'd have explained, yeah, like the actual jumping and that a lot more, like if they got a sequel. But yeah, I mean, I still quite enjoyed this film, to be honest. Like, I had a good
For
time.
me,
with it.
it falls into the so bad it's good kind of cheesy
Yeah.
side of it. It's very easy to watch, and yeah, I think it benefits from not being too long.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It also falls into the fault of because it's not that long, quote unquote, because it's an hour and a half. It misses out on explaining so many things. It has so many interesting concepts that it's like we don't want to explain it. They just are, like how the teleporting works. Why are these paladins after these people? Like why?
Yeah.
None of these characters have backstories apart from the main character.
Like, why can he tell? Because it's not like it is passed through down their genes. Because like Yondu can't teleport, and he's
Yeah.
his dad. And then I guess unless the mum kind of don't know,
Well, no,
like
but
maybe
she's-
cheated on him with a teleporter.
No, 'cause she's a paladin, and she
Yeah.
said, "I need to get rid of you or kill you." Like it's not genetic; it must just be at random.
It just sort of happens, yeah. Although I guess I kind of like it sort of not explaining it. If the main character doesn't know what's causing it, it'd be nice if someone did explain it to him. Like if they try and find out what's happening. But
That could have been what Jamie Bell did, but instead he just yelled.
Yeah.
Which Jamie Bell is really good in this. The acting, apart from maybe Hayden Christensen, the acting overall is quite good because it's a lot of, again, weirdly good actors in a weirdly not good film.
yeah,
I think it helps as well. It's a smaller cast as well, so you see a lot of
It is a small cast. Like most of the scenes are just like 2 or 3 people jumping around.
Mm.
I think it's
Yeah.
what is good is that they did film it. They did actually go on like to the countries that they're appearing in.
That's good.
Like that's why I think a lot of it held up. It's not just green screens.
Yeah, that's expensive.
That's where most of the budget went. But
yeah,
Yeah,
it looks like
I
the
can
budget
imagine.
was 85 million and it grossed like 225 million.
it was filmed in
good.
20 cities and 14 countries.
Wow. No, that's a lot. That's good.
Normally, you get one location outside of a studio.
Yeah, there's so much potential in Jumper, and there always has been. And I remember watching it when I was younger and being like really excited for all these cool things that it never pushed any further than just having them. I feel like that's partially down to there are so many of them in this film. You have the paladins, who are these religious zealot types, after the jumpers, who are these people that can teleport. But then there are most jumpers turn out to be terrible people, and they can teleport cars, and there's so many things.
Yeah, Jamie Bell was saying how he learned to teleport the cars and stuff by knowing how to control the jumps more, but it's like, how?
Yeah, and Jamie Bell's first character teleported when he was 5 or 3 or something. And
5, yeah.
there are so many really cool concepts in Jumper that they don't have time to like look into any of them too much.
Yeah, it's like they focus on the love story and the chase way
Yeah.
too much. Like it literally goes from like, okay, I can jump to I've fallen in love to we're on the run.
Yeah, it
She
didn't need a love
kidnapped
story at all.
and then it's resolved.
And I think the beginning of the film is the better part of the film,
Yeah.
story-wise, because it actually puts the time aside to explain how he first learned to get his powers, what he did with it. He stole from a bank, which, side note, the bank, for some reason, the customer toilets are right next to the safe.
Yeah, I mean they had it coming. That's probably what tipped off grey-haired Nick Fury. Didn't he say that like, oh, did you ever let him see the vault? Because that's all it takes is that if they can see it, they can jump there.
Yeah, because he said the locks weren't broken, no one seemed to have broken in, and no one broke out.
Yeah.
So he said, I want the name of every single person that owns a thing in a safety
Yeah,
deposit box in that room. Which, did he go to all of those people before he was like, oh no, it's this kid that...
I mean,
How?
maybe because he doesn't encounter him until that time where they're in his apartment.
Yeah, he's done that. He's like the jumper, like Hayden Christensen's had a long time to like
Yeah.
build up a serious amount of wealth and like profile because he's got like this very snazzy apartment.
Yeah.
So you need like background checks and stuff like that. Like you need a lot of cash to
Yeah.
maintain that kind of lifestyle, and also not be caught out by like the IRS and
Yeah.
like money laundering and mobs and other things. Like if you suddenly come into a lot of money, no matter how you came about it, there'll be questions asked.
When you can teleport anywhere in the world, as soon as people start questioning you, you can be gone,
True.
literally without a trace.
Which is why it's weird that he ends up
Back-
settling in such a high noticeable place where he's like a familiar face. He knows the doorman.
Yeah, and like if they went into it, even if they did it in a montage, if they just showed you that he did this a lot, but he always kind of got caught and teleported away. He moved into a fancy place, used all the stolen money to pay for it, and then as soon as people got suspicious, he moved on.
Yeah.
If they like showed that him doing that, that would have made his character a bit more interesting.
Because I mean, the whole idea of the point is that he thinks he's pretty much the only one, or
Yeah.
hasn't even thought to explore that there's others, and he just doesn't. Yeah, it's so selfish.
Yeah.
And like
But-
the idea that his dad is still stuck in that crummy apartment, and he doesn't like even just send him like give him like something valuable to discover in the attic, for Christ's sake. Like you can be
Yeah.
sneaky about it and give your dad like he says his dad's a bad guy, but that's also not explored
No.
at all.
His dad's never been a bad
It's
guy.
like, well, I'm not taking a teenage boy's word for his dad being a dickhead, because it's pretty much you have to think your dad's a bit of a dickhead at that age.
If anything, his dad's actually a really nice guy. He has food ready for him when he comes home. He asks why he's all like, when he falls into the river, because obviously he doesn't know he almost drowned, but he's like, oh, what happened? But his son just like, brushes him off. And then like when he comes back, like halfway through the film, he's like, son, don't leave. So he generally actually seems like quite a caring dude. So if anything, Hayden Christensen's character is just a bit of an arse, really.
Yeah,
I
like
just don't understand how you can resent your own dad that hasn't done something obviously wrong. Like if his dad had been like really abusive, or they'd shown him resent him for his mum leaving or anything like that, the reason for him to spurn his father that much, it would have made sense. But instead it just seems really, really heartless that he just doesn't give him anything. Like he's living this luxurious lifestyle while his dad's like struggling to feed himself.
Yeah, it falls into the same sort of problem we had with Wanted, where the main character's a bad guy, and that's the point, is they're not a good person. But at the same time, they're not allowed to be not a good person because
Yeah.
they're the main character.
Yeah, they still want you to like him, but actually
Yeah.
he doesn't have any redeeming qualities. And apart from the fact that he's got this mysterious, if not terrifying aura about him,
Yeah.
why does this girl fall for him and go along with, like, I'd be like, look, I don't want you to take me to Rome. I would like you to take me to a nearby restaurant and
Yeah.
tell me about yourself.
Yeah,
because he'd been missing for I don't know how long, like I think 6 years, was it?
Something crazy,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, just you'd want to talk and have a catch up and be like, where did you go? Not, I'm in banking. Okay, let's go to Rome.
yeah,
And she has no that she doesn't move out for whatever reason, but that is also problematic in that she is given no decent backstory
No.
at all. Like we don't know why she's trapped there. Is her family ill? Does she have siblings to raise? Has she, is she in debt? Does something happen? Like why is she still stuck there?
yeah,
And instead it's just sort of, he almost like sneers at the fact that she's still there. It's like a letdown. He's glad to see her, but it's like, well, I sort of assumed like she'd do
How-
something with herself, and
how
how
did you get out? Yeah,
how pathetic that she's still there, which is just
yeah.
really pompous.
David is kind of the only character that gets a backstory, and I think that's a big problem. His only redeeming quality is that he doesn't kill Samuel Whitehair at the end, and like that's it. That's the only good thing. Because he looks at the video of the people drowning, and he's like, he just ignores it and moves on, and he could very easily. Like,
Yeah, because I'd forgotten that he doesn't do anything to help. Because it's
yeah,
because like it sort of sets it up to make you think he's going to, because
Yeah.
that's when he leaves with the umbrella and the doorman's like, oh, I don't think it's gonna rain. He's like, it is where I'm going, and you're like, oh, maybe he's gonna.
which I
Like-
guess is the point of that scene.
Yeah,
Is you're meant to.
At least Jamie Bell's character is like trying to capture and track down and eliminate these paladins. Like he's actually trying to do something and stop the other jumpers from getting hurt. And like
Yeah.
he goes out of his way to protect David, and by warning him and telling him, because if he'd done nothing, like obviously he would have been caught way sooner.
Yeah, Jamie Bell's character is way more interesting than the main
Yeah.
character.
yeah. Griffin, by the way, I just looked up. His
Yeah,
character's
Griffin.
name's Griffin.
And
And-
he wants to he wants like other jumpers to be protected, and he like wants to hunt down these paladins because he cares about something. And that's what I think David Rice lacks, is a care.
Yeah, like It would have made the David character a lot more interesting if he did do good things. If throughout the film, like when he saw the people drowning or in the tsunami, if he did something about it, but did it subtly and without making a big deal about it, if he just went and helped, and then even if he put on a mask, even if he like put on something and helped out, and then there were other bits in the film where he helped people out in public and maybe stopped someone getting mugged, but it was always no one ever saw him doing it. That would make the scene at the end where he says, "But I'm different," mean something.
Because he's not different as far as, especially in Nick Fury or whatever his name is, Ronald's eyes.
Yeah.
They're like, this kid is just abusing this power. Like, he clearly has done nothing to
Yeah.
deserve it, and nothing in thanks of it.
At least Jamie Bell's character could say that. He could say, "Oh, I'm different."
Yeah.
And it would make sense because Jamie Bell's character never does anything wrong. Like, I think he steals a car, and like,
Which-
I guess it implies he stole a load of other stuff, but
It's kind of out of character for him though, because when he steals the car, he goes on this prior to that, he goes on this rant about how, like, you know, you have to be like undercover and don't jump where it's obvious. And then they're just jumping this car through Tokyo, like through
Yeah.
traffic.
I think all all bets are off once they're in a chase against these people that will go to the ends of the earth to
Yeah.
kill them. It's like at that point I kind of get it, and it's an action sequence like they are going to do. It's like, you wouldn't normally jump through a window to get out of a building, but if there's someone chasing you, you'd consider it.
yeah.
I just remembered that David Rice does say at the start, "Oh, I'm going to repay it all," but he never gets a job.
No, he never does.
He never does repay any of it. He just builds up fat stacks. It's not like he then, there's just so many ways. Like, it would have been more interesting if they were like after him, and the reason they keep on getting to him or find is because he does something. He saves someone a little bit too noticeably, and they're on his tail again.
Yeah, or they don't catch him saving people, but they catch him doing terrible things. And again, him saving people would have made that line make more sense where he says, "I'm going to pay it back," because that could be his way of paying it back.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'd forgive someone who robbed from a bank, especially when it's just cash in a bank, because how you don't get much more meaningless than that. If he'd then done something to pay, like, saved people, Christ, donated some of it to an animal shelter, even gone down the Robin Hood, steal from the rich to give to the poor route, is still a little bit of redemption.
I mean, he
Yeah.
did that. He was poor and he gave himself money.
Hmm.
It would have made his character way more interesting and way more 3D, and it would have made all the characters around him make more sense, because you could have had a scene where Griffin is yelling about him showing off and he's too obvious with his jumping, and then you could just, well, at least he's doing something good about it. David could be like, "I'm at least doing good things with it. What are you doing? Just hiding up here in Egypt?" You could have had scenes like that where they have these meaningful things happen and not just bits that get them to the next fight scene.
Which, I mean, the action set pieces were pretty cool.
Yeah,
They were, yeah.
Yeah, the chases were good.
And
The
then,
fight
And
scenes were really good.
it's an interesting. I did enjoy like that they were jumping all over the place, but they could follow each other, and you got all those different scenes, and like fighting through Tokyo one minute, Egypt the next was
and
cool.
then bringing a double-decker bus through a teleport point, which
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there would still have been passengers and a driver on that one. That's a bit
That's
fucked.
the thing. There were no. I think they literally only brought over the bus, but then I'm thinking, so what the hell happened to the people on the second level on the upper
Yeah.
deck? They just fall 13 foot.
You also had when they teleported into that war zone.
Oh, in Chechnya, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a guy driving the car.
Oh, and the tank just drives over the car, doesn't
It
it?
just crushes him. I remember watching that. So it was, oh, is that guy just dead?
I
Because it
think so.
doesn't show him running away.
Well, that's dark.
Yeah. And they just glance over that, like, we're back to teleport fighting.
Yeah, the consequences that don't happen for all the civilians that are killed. I mean, not quite as many as in previous
Well,
film
no.
Wanted, where they do rail an entire train, but it's still
Yeah.
a bus full of people now stuck in Egypt.
Yeah.
And it kind of proves the Paladin's point then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This entire movie.
So I've just
They're
been
the good
reading, and
guys.
apparently it was originally they were considering having Tom Sturridge, a different actor, a younger actor, portray David, but they thought that it would make he was supposed to be 18 in the film, but instead they make him 25. By the time it's released, this character is sort of 25 in the main part of the film. I think it would have made way more sense, like, because they don't change enough of it. He doesn't grow up enough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, personally, I am almost unrecognizable to how I was when I was 18 and how I behaved and what I did and what I
Yeah.
thought of myself. And he acts like an 18-year-old. Like, that way makes way more sense. 18-year-olds aren't fully developed yet. They are selfish. They are very romantic, and that makes a lot of sense for like why he does this weird sort of love quest to go and get this girl. And
It also makes his relationship with Griffin make more sense, because then Griffin becomes more of an older brother figure and not just
Yeah.
an annoying guy. That makes way more. That would have been way better. Because
but it was literally just for marketing purposes. They were like, you have a huge movie here and adults won't go and see an 18-year-old. They'll consider it a children's movie. So you could have a bigger movie if he's an
Yeah.
older actor.
And they went,
So-
who is the most beloved actor of
yeah,
the late 2000s who everyone praises and loves and has nothing bad to say about? Which, I mean, he wasn't that bad in this. Like,
I think his acting was pretty good, especially considering the prequels.
yeah, it probably helped that, he was acting on location. Like, I feel like if he was acting in front of a blue screen, he'd have had flashbacks.
Yeah, Tom Sturridge is in the famous for The Boat That Rocked.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the kid that's
Yeah,
on that.
yeah.
That's a good
Way
movie.
more interesting. Like I
Story,
could just like
yeah.
that would make so much more sense that you're essentially a teenager with superpowers.
Yeah.
Like I'd forgive him so
Yeah,
much more. Like, I think
untouchable.
that's like I'd understand. Of course, you're going to make these horrible mistakes, and because you've got these superpowers, they have super consequences.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a full origin story rather than a bit of an origin story, and then 6 years later, this guy's still
It kind of has a
Not
Bambi
grown up.
feel about it, where it's like
Yeah.
weird. Like the start happens, and then there's just a weird pubescent gap, and
Him-
then he's an adult.
Him being a teenager makes the paladins a lot more scary.
Yes, they're basically. I mean, 18. You're basically a child.
Yeah, that makes the paladins way more violent because they're not even taking into account that he's not an adult; he's a teenager.
Well, I mean, the mum has to leave when he's 5 because that was her choice. Was like either leave or kill her. And it's like I guess they do explain that actually
yeah,
some paladins would kill a 5-year-old, but
that's kind of lost. If he was 18, yeah, they would have been a lot scarier just by the fact that he's 18.
it's got not to because I mean, obviously we've talked about Wanted already, but it's got Loom vibes in it
Yeah.
where it's like there is one line that stood out to me that made me think of Wanted was that he says like I've not done anything wrong, and he says you will, because that wasn't actually Hayden's character, that was like one of the other random jumpers
yeah
in
when
one of
it's
the other scenes.
when it's introducing the paladins as
Yeah.
hunting down jumpers to kill them. Yeah, it's just
Mm.
that when they're chasing through the forest. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that would have been a really cool way to. If, say, that scene was slightly extended and the guy they were chasing was someone who they were chasing because he had genuinely just done something awful, to
Yeah.
sort of to show that, yeah, the jumpers will do bad things.
Yeah, keep it
Oh,
morally
just
ground.
to let you guys know, in the book, they actually had to change Samuel L. Jackson's character's name.
Why?
He was well because in the book he's called Brian Cox,
Ooh, okay.
and because obviously you've
Yeah.
got the physicist, so yeah, they went for Roland.
Again, should have
Yeah.
picked a biblical name.
Any name except Roland would have
Yeah.
been.
No, what they should have done is cast Brian Cox as the character, but call him Samuel L. Jackson.
And he's killing them because they defy the laws of physics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's the secular version of the paladin. I do have one question, one point that I made during watching Jumper. It's a good old fashioned, the traditional question of who'd win in a fight, Anakin or David?
See, Anakin could probably use the Force
Yeah,
and
could he get
detect
hold of
when he
him? Though?
knocks in.
Could he get hold of him though?
But instead
Hmm.
of, I reckon what he'd do is, like in critically acclaimed movie X-Men Origins Wolverine, is sort of figure out where he's going to teleport to and have his lightsaber there ready for when he appears.
That's true. But how would he work out where he's? I guess
Or he could
through
go
the Force.
the General Grievous route and just spin the lightsabers around randomly
Spin
like
them
a
around.
maniac.
Or David could go the General Grievous route and just teleport randomly like a maniac.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Because I made that note at the very beginning of the film because I was like, I want to see if I can answer this at the end. I think Anakin would win against David. I think Anakin would lose against Griffin because I just get
Yeah.
the feeling Griffin fights dirty.
Oh yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean,
sand and everything.
Griffin would like teleport away and then appear above him with a train.
well, I mean, Griffin knew that these guys were going to follow David into his hideout, so his plan was to just set a bomb.
Yeah,
Like he's
I-
not got any. Like he knows that they're out to kill him. He's out to kill them.
yeah. I think Griffin would be like, "Oh, you've got a laser sword, have you? Teleport away, teleport back, drop a great white shark on him, and just keep doing that until Anakin died."
I feel
Yeah.
like as elusive as the actual definition of what the Force can and can't do is, with Jumper, you know what it shows what you can do. You can.
Yeah.
What hope do you have against that? Like, if that person wants to kill you, you're gonna die. So I think that's like the issue. That's I guess where the Paladins come in and are like, well, these people do have the power to kill literally whoever they want.
Yeah.
Maybe they should be grateful that all he wants to do is rob banks.
Yeah, maybe we'll leave that one until he does
Like, why
something.
poke that fire? Like wait until he's at least hinted that he's going a little bit insane.
Yeah, I think David would die immediately because he doesn't know how to fight as a jumper.
Yeah, we'd do something stupid.
Yeah. And I think
Like punch him in the face and then get his hand cut off.
Yeah, I think he'd try and get close and punch because I think that's all he can do, and he'd get cut in half by a lightsaber. As soon as Griffin sees what the lightsaber can do, he's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna drop everything on this man. I'm gonna. Oh, you want the top of the Eiffel Tower? On you.
Just goes to Tatooine, finds a pod race, teleports a pod racer into Anakin, goes
Yeah.
full circle. There we go.
Yeah, I think that would. I think
Actually, no.
Griffin
I
would
want him
win
to drop an AT-AT on him, but the AT-AT is upside down, and then its legs are wriggling in the air like when a turtle's on its back.
Yep. I think Anakin would put up a fight. I think he'd be force grabbing these things out of the sky. But I just think Griffin would keep doing it.
Yeah.
And the things would be getting weirder and weirder and bigger. Bigger.
Well, I guess because you have to think on your feet, don't you? Like you have to decide where you're going to teleport there, and it has to be somewhere you've been.
What he could do is wait for Anakin to be on a spaceship, and then teleport into it, and then teleport out. And when he teleports out, make sure it's a bit messy and tear a hole in the ship, and then he'll get sucked out into space.
Yeah, I feel like Griffin would fight dirty and be clever about it.
Yeah.
He'd teleport the lightsaber out of his hand.
Yeah, there's no honor.
There is Anakin would probably assume there's honor at the beginning and be like, okay, I'm not fighting children here. I have to be honorable. And Griffin would be, you know what? Fuck you. Have a car.
He never actually says the limit of his power. He just says if it moves, I can teleport it. So does that mean he can like drop an aircraft carrier on Anakin then? And
Yeah.
like game over.
Technically, the
not?
Earth is
Oh,
constantly moving.
How
he'd
about
look
he
up-
goes onto a spaceship and then teleports the spaceship away, but not Anakin?
Yeah.
Oh,
Griffin
maybe that's
would-
how he dealt with the bus driver then.
Griffin
Yeah, but
would look-
that's what I was thinking. What about the people that were sat on the top deck? Like, there's nothing between them and the road now.
That's a
That's
long
true.
fall.
And they were going at, probably a good few miles an hour. Wait, no, it was a
There's a
London
lot of
bus.
collateral damage.
It was a bus in London. It probably wasn't moving.
Yeah.
So they've just got a sheer drop onto other passengers.
Yeah, they do speed around London, which, as we all know, is complete fiction. I remember it
Yes.
having a good soundtrack.
Are you sure it had a good soundtrack?
I can't remember what the soundtrack is, but I remember listening to it and being like, yeah, this is quite good. Or I'm remembering a different film.
Is there a bit of The Fray in it? It sounded like The Fray. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look After You, performed by The Fray. I knew it wasn't him. I wasn't making it up. They were used so much at that sort of time as well. In like
Yeah.
in
Late 2000s.
Scrubs, Grey's Anatomy, like all of them. Like for sad moments, it basically had to be The Fray to remind you that you were supposed to be crying.
It was either the Fray or that one Sia song.
Oh, they had the hives as well. That's one bit I noticed.
They
Yeah.
have the Hive. They did. That's why I thought it had a good soundtrack because they played one Hive song,
Yeah.
and I think that convinced me that the rest of the soundtrack was good because I'm pretty sure the Hives is like the first big song that's played.
Yeah, they play Tick Tick Boom when he's like first doing his like bank heist when he's
Yeah.
first going into the vault.
If the rest of the film had that as style of soundtrack, and it doesn't, sadly, I think it would have been a way better film. As it is now, just with that style of music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many double-decker buses would you teleport into Egypt for this movie?
I'd say a good 7. Like this scale is constantly moving, and it's kind of a scale of how good this film could be
Yeah.
compared to how good it is for me.
Or like
I
how
think
how
like
good you enjoyed it in the moment as well.
Yeah, I think like a 6, but there is a ton of stuff they could have done to make it better.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think I came out of this film this time round frustrated because it has potential. Like it's a good concept, but it's poorly executed and too edgy for its own good.
that's-
And the women, the female characters are in it are just really badly written and performed. So I but it's got guilty pleasure vibes for me.
It does. It has
It's
cool-
enjoyable to watch. It's so I think it does fall into that it's so bad it's good
Yeah,
category where I'm sat there like I shouldn't like this. I know it's problematic, but also it's kind of cool.
Yes.
And I like the jumping and I like the chases and the fact that they've made this character's got such thick plot armor. You know nothing really bad's going to happen. So
Could've-
yeah, I'd give it six double decker buses going into Egypt.
Yeah, so I'd probably give it 6 again, only because I remember watching this as a teenager, well, not even a teenager actually, 2008, so I would have been barely in secondary school. Yeah, kind of thinking that would be a really cool power. I'd definitely live his life, although on reflection, that's probably not a good way to live. But
No, honestly, I think I felt the same when I first watched it. Yeah, like 2008, I would have literally been 16. So
Mhm. And all those decisions make sense for a 16-year-old.
Oh yeah, for sure.
oh, like, I mean, he's like, oh, I'm surfing in the morning, then I'm skiing in the afternoon, and around all over the world. So yeah,
you must
Yeah.
I
get
suppose
like
that's why he's
get
not
that.
fat.
yeah, you must get really fucked jet lag. Like I not
Yeah.
just like
Yeah,
skipping
you
between
would.
time zones.
I guess you just keep your own watch on.
Yeah, you just teleport everywhere where it's daytime, and then when it's night where you live, where you're used to nighttime, you go back home.
I'd probably, in the moment, I think I'd give this 8. Like,
Mm,
but on
yeah.
reflection, yeah, probably a 6 makes more sense. Yeah, like you say, actually watching it, it's a really enjoyable, great time. But then when you sort of, you look at what could be better, and I mean, it's gonna be like that for a lot of films, really. But yeah, in the moment, I just had a good time watching it. I used to enjoy watching it when I was younger. I hadn't seen it in maybe 10 years, I reckon.
It's a really good time movie.
Yeah. So,
If this was on TV, I'd watch it again.
and with that, I've been Dan.
I've been Michael.
I've been Helena.
And I've been Ben.
And you can find us on Twitter at Hilton Pod. That is at HILTM Pod. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave us a review, that'd be great.
Wait, wrong film. Christian.